Hey guys, welcome back to a very early morning or very late, depending on if you're still up from trick or treating or doing whatever else you guys were doing. We jumped into the studio today because we saw that some things were happening right around the stroke of midnight, and it wasn't that our military was turning into a pumpkin, it looked like Venezuela was. Well, guys, welcome back. Thank you for joining us. We are making some changes, but one of the things that we're doing tonight is jumping out ahead of our, I guess we could call them competition. We kind of see ourselves as a little bit of a blue ocean news organization. We will be bringing you what's called the Word of God as we bring you the news of the world. So we're going to start out today with Proverbs 3:5. Place your confidence in God. It is trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Now, that may be a weird thing to start out the day with, coming off of Halloween on a Friday night, and yeah, we can understand that. I'm still up. However, around about 1 in the morning, 0, 100, or 200 hours, depending on what part of the United States you're in, the Department of Defense issued this warning to the FAA saying all air flight and air traffic down on the southeast coast of Puerto Rico is hereby suspended until March 31st. For reference, Hurricane Melissa just made landfall this past week and is pretty much moved through and done with all those things. So March 31st is a pretty far out date and time. What could we possibly be doing around that area? Well, let's pull up a map. So here's Puerto Rico, and I know many of you probably haven't been looking at a map when you're on that cruise for the 8 days, 7 night, all you can eat and drink, 7 or 3 South Caribbean, just so you know, excursion vacation on whatever your cruise line is. And those are pretty fantastic. I've been on them myself. However, if you're not paying attention, the southeast coast of Puerto Rico kind of aligns with a direct flight path if you were coming down from, I don't know, somewhere in the mainland of the United States. Let's just call it Pensacola, Florida, just for grins. And let's just say that maybe during a hurricane, that is a lot of cloud cover. Why don't we just go ahead and just move our boats in and park them right off the coast of, is that Venezuela? You know what? If I had a nickel or a dime for every time I moved an entire aircraft carrier fleet off the coast of Venezuela, I would either have 5 or 10 cents, which is, with inflation, pretty much nothing right now. So what happened as you were either out, passed out, incapacitated, or in bed, asleep, being a good person, or whatever, it appears that we may have just started our bombardment run, or at least set up our permanent new home outside of what might become our new favorite coastal destination in the south of America.
USS destroyers have been seen accompanying Iwo Jima. Its current position means it could arrive at Venezuela in under 5 hours if the order was given. USS Gerald R. Ford, the largest aircraft carrier in the world, is currently steaming over to the region. The Ford's air wing is said to include almost 90 aircraft, among them 18 Super Hornets.
Signs. I'm sure most of you have been seeing that there has been some back and forth on social media and some news posts, but there's also plenty of people saying, why are we going to war with Venezuela? Why would we do that when we're spending all this money over in Israel and in the Middle East and everything else? We've been running on a war platform. Why would we be doing that? Well, oil. Yeah, oil's one thing. A lot of war over in Europe. We've been doing that for a while. And I'm just going to give you guys an honest opinion from myself. If you have 2 countries such as, I don't know, let's call them Slusha and Fina, and they are just working you over in Africa, getting you kicked out of places like Nigeria, Kenya, and several other places where you had drone bases and everything else, to where you've pretty much lost a good portion of your control of that side of the world.
Facade has demanded a halt for the U.S. operations in that country, and the military government in Niger has also, pulled out of a military cooperation agreement with the U.S. In these instances, the U.S. is moving out and Russia is moving in.
You might start looking at South America, i.e., Panama, and several of the other coastal places, especially with ones that are rich in, I don't know, some resources that the rest of the world needs, like oil? Who said oil?
Huh? Oil? Who said something about oil, bitch? You cooking?
Is what it is right now, guys. I'm not offering whether that is right or wrong. What I am going to offer you is just some insight on what's occurring right now. So, as all the traffic paused, that's pretty much saying we are going to be having military operations around that area. And since Puerto Rico is our territory that's the furthest down in that area, the flight path is going to be completely blocked on that side, which means that during the hurricane, we most likely moved people into that direct line of that part of the South Caribbean Sea. Meaning that if you go there and you're from another country, you're probably getting vaporized, or some of those orbs from the ocean are just going to show up and all of a sudden your stuff's not going to work. Now, March 31st might be a little far. I don't know how much you know about the Venezuelan military. It's not exactly well equipped. Most people will be like, no, it's a modern army. Look, they got this and they got that. They got like 70,000 people in there. Yeah. Have you seen what happened in 1991 with Saddam Hussein? Most of you are too young to remember that. And so am I. But if you are a student of history, you'll find out that Saddam Hussein vastly outnumbered the coalition forces that were rolling in there. Matter of fact, it was said he had a 1 million-man army waiting to just dominate everybody, and he was studying Vietnam to basically plan out a very long, drawn-out cave and, jungle warfare in the middle of the desert. Well, it didn't work out for him that way. The land battle was an absolute distraction. It was called a big left hook. They had everything happening on a coast, and then all of a sudden, Stormin' Norman comes around the corner and just knocks out all of their incredibly built up Soviet-era artillery, tanks, dug-in troops. At a certain point, actually, there was Iraqi military that were surrendering to foreign press because they couldn't find any Americans to surrender to. It was one of the most humiliating and quick defeats that anyone had ever seen, and it was with a army that was about 1 million people in a very well-fortified, armed, and fueled modern army, according to the rest of the world at the time and the leader who was in charge of that area. It was pretty quick work that was done with him. Now, transfer over to Venezuela, and we have a much larger amount of coastal area. Matter of fact, the coastline around Venezuela is a good portion of its entire border. It's, I think, hold on, we have a note here, 2,800 kilometers, so that's roughly 1,740 miles, I think, but we have that written down, so I'm going to go with that. Also, it has land borders. The two largest land borders are going to be with Colombia and Brazil down in the south. And then you also have one that's contested, and this is an interesting point. I actually was not this aware of this border dispute, but with Guyana, am I saying that right? Okay, we're just going to go with it. 61,000 square mile border dispute. It's kind of large. They took Venezuela to the International Court of Justice back in 2018. So they actually do have a contested border with a group of people who really don't like that Maduro's in power and isn't giving them their land, apparently, according to them. So they have one border with a trade partner that we're calling a sponsor of terrorism through the drug trade, and they have another border with Brazil, which is very much one of our partners, and then they have a border with somebody who doesn't like them, and then they have a whole lot of open coastline. Well, let's take a look at their Navy. How's their Navy doing? Ooh, not great. They're standing militia, like total military, by the way, in terms of on land, around about 70,000. I know you probably don't know this because I didn't know this. I had to go look it up. They're not exactly well equipped. So if we're comparing them to something like a flash war, like what occurred with Bush One and Desert Storm, Desert Shield, it's not going to look that way. The troops are primarily funded and put in place through drug trade. In fact, Maduro is primarily held up by the. Let's see here. I have this written down somewhere. Guys, where is this? It is. You know what? We'll come back to that. Oh yeah, Cartel of the Suns. Cartel of the Suns is one of the primary ones who is actually helping with their free and fair elections, utilizing the same Dominion voting machines that we had here in the last 8 years. Totally normal. These are very much, they don't even connect to the internet, except for they do. They do connect to the internet, but they would never connect. They've been hacked, but nobody can hack them. Somebody stole the records. Who's letting everyone know all this information? So why are we bringing this up right now at 5 a.m. and why do we feel like staying up? Well, because of what's occurring is exactly what occurs when you're setting up a 1-2 strike. So we thought we'd let you know first. Like we said, we're tired of the news being late and we're tired of clickbait. If you are too, we hope you'll enjoy what we're about to give you. Now, we do have some stats here, so please stay with me as I pull these up. Okay, so here are a few important things. Number one, the country is a primarily Christian country. It doesn't have a large demographic of shifting alignments. It is actually 96% Roman Catholic, with a total of about 2% Protestant and 2% other. Fill in what you think those are, but their population is also primarily Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese, with some Arab and German and African. The German thing always just makes me smile. Like, just how ridiculous is it that we still don't talk about what's sitting in these countries and where they're coming from? We'll get to that in a second. We started to talk about it before the show. Anyway, population of Venezuela is roughly 30 million people. Total square miles, we don't have square miles because they count things in weird commie things. So they have a total of 912 square kilometers, whatever I'm just going to divide by 2. I'm going to say 400,000 square miles. I don't know. No, that can't be right. Math is hard. That's why we're talking instead of doing important things like calculations. Not at 5 a.m. Not this guy. No. All right. So Venezuela also borders Colombia and it borders Brazil, as we said. Brazil being an ally, not something we have to worry about over there. Colombia being somebody who is primarily run by drug cartels. They're probably going to still want to run their drugs out some way to the rest of the world. You likely will see some people choose to fight, and you'll see some people choose to live. Notice I said those were the two distinctions. There's not an in-between. Trust me with what's coming for you. Apparently, hold on, let me see what we got over here. I believe we have a carrier group, and under the guise or the shadowy cloud cover of Hurricane Melissa, while some horrible things were going on, we're like, you know what? There's a lot of people saying that never let a crisis go to waste thing. Maybe we just kind of skip in behind this hurricane. It's not like they have a lot of satellite structure or anything over in Venezuela. One of the things that is important to note, though, that may actually throw a little bit of a riff in this whole thing. I think you all probably know at this point, Venezuela is largely an oil-rich place. It was the number one place for Latin American GDP and total wealth per person in all of Latin America until this crazy thing that apparently has still never been done right. Socialism showed up and just ruined everyone's lives. Socialism is evil. Don't try it. If you want to argue with me, don't. You're wrong. I don't have to argue. Why? 45 to 60 million people have died in the last 100 years because of it. And you want to talk about Christianity or Islam or anything else? No. In 100 years, it was the deadliest ever in the past since recorded history. What was the one place that those massive wars and everything else seem to come about from and is still a scourge on this world? Oh, that's right. Socialism, what they have in Venezuela, which is going great for them. They're still not doing it right, though, right? you see, let's talk about Venezuela. Not a lot of people know about it, and to be honest, our educational system here in the U.S. has become pretty socialized as well, meaning it's dropped in quality. So let's discuss a couple things you might need to also know about Venezuela. Back in the day, there was this socialist guy named Hugo Chavez. Hugo Chavez took over a jewel of Latin America, just absolutely beautiful, brimming with potential. Think Iran pre-Ayatollah. And then it turned to absolute shit. And then in 2013, that's literally all I'm going to say. That's what happens in all socialism. Shit. Congratulations, breadlines. And I swear to God, if we can just take Bernie Sanders, fly him down there, put him in a breadline with AOC, and they can do it. They can do their whole campaign thing. I don't know what they're doing. They can do their campaign thing there in breadlines in Venezuela. And guess what? We'll take you over to North Korea. You love it so much. Show us how great it is. Get in there. Really, really give us what for. You're not going to do it. Yeah. Okay. Oh, quick side point about socialists. How is Bernie Sanders so wealthy? I thought I'd let you guys know this. When somebody like Bernie Sanders puts out a book, it doesn't become an Amazon bestseller because everybody's reading it. What happens is he's going through a campaign. He takes your campaign finances. He turns over here. He buys all his own books, and then he brings them to his campaign that you've donated to, and he sells them back to you, signing them, or gives them out for free, signing them. And wouldn't you know it, they were all bought out. I wonder where that money came from. Couldn't be from the campaign, except it was. You donated to make him a bestseller and a millionaire. You didn't donate to make him a leader. He's never going to end up in public office above the current one. There you go. Sorry to make your 1st of November sad. Anyway, Venezuela. Where was I? Yeah, Maduro. All right, so currently, with the cartel of the Sons and others, the cartel is necessary for him to remain in power because you likely have seen maybe once every couple of years that, oh, Maduro was up against this candidate, that candidate almost won, and then they're like, oh, we're going to kill this candidate because he's a terrorist or insider threat. And that's what's happening again. We have Maria Machado, and this is an interesting candidate. You're going to know more than anybody else if you're watching this. Maria Machado is actually a generational wealth kind of candidate. Interesting, especially within a socialist environment, but here's why it actually kind of works for her. She is a little bit of a libertarian. She believes in absolutely privatizing everything because her family actually is a historically wealthy steel industry family. When Chavez came in, he nationalized their family's businesses and ran them into the ground. Socialism sucks. It's evil. All right. So after that, they still had some wealth, and honestly, they still needed to operate the steel factories and plants that they were building the steel with. Otherwise, they would never have any projects. So they still kind of maintained a level of wealth that was something you might have seen in the 80s and the 60s in certain countries in the Soviet Union that were of a higher level of necessity. And because of that, they ended up being places where people would retreat and vacation. So it's a weird kind of thing where she's completely the opposite of their societal structure, which is a good thing, but she's also generational wealth, which is the thing that the socialism came about to fight. It's a full circle moment. They held their elections in July, and wouldn't you know it, there was such a free and fair election that in the middle of the night, they turned off everything and they said, you know what, we're going to make sure that every vote is counted, and we'll figure that out over the next few months. So she did what everyone does in a free and fair election, went into hiding, and is still under protection and in hiding in certain places. But I'm guessing she's probably going to make an appearance in some pretty public areas coming up here in the next week or two. Why? I don't know. Call it a hunch. Maybe it's because there's a United States aircraft carrier group off the coast of her very well-manned coastal shorelines, where I'm sure the military genius that is this guy is This war room of crackpot, just absolute geniuses that they've assembled in this. This reminds me of Shane Gillis talking about like the Al Qaeda guys like doing the what do you call it, the monkey bars thing. He's like, we all saw that. Can you imagine doing that and then sending it to people and be like, not bad. It's like, I'm sorry. There are cafeterias in the Pentagon which have more like cool military makeup structure than that. And okay. Anyway, so what's going to occur now? Well, this was not something that occurred randomly. It's not just like, oh, well, hey, there's a hurricane and it's like Halloween. How about we go about this? No. This has been something that has been planned since the beginning of the year. How do we know that? There's a couple key points. One, she was able to run and did actually survive through the election, meaning there were probably some threats or some international pressure put on Maduro that he had to let her run. Now, typically, according to him and his history, he's going to be like, I own this place. I run this place. I'm going to let them run. They're going to talk shit on the, sorry, language, mom. They're going to talk trash on the news about me, and then we're going to make this person go away, and then I'm running for another 4 years. But secretly, there's a larger plan at play. The U.S. starts talking to other people in other countries. How do you set up and replace a dictator? Well, it's a little difficult right now because we have all of this nation building and a lot of fatigue over being at war for 25 years. But I'm not going to add commentary because as far as I'm aware right now, yep, still nothing saying we're at war. So I'm just kind of war gaming and guessing here, okay? Now, with Maria Machado, as we said, you have a legacy, you have some institutional wealth, some generational wealth, but she also has the people, right? Typically, inside of many dictatorships, a female figure is actually one of the ones who pulls them out of these kind of situations, because not only can she be seen as a mother who's, fighting for the people, she's seen as somebody who will be caring as they're taking something that was intended to be caring and has been taken over by the forceful arm and emotionless overreach of a dictator, right? And then the feminine takes over and will care for these people who have been destroyed and ruined by the horrible scourge on this world that is socialism. Once again, I'm going to keep saying that. Socialism is evil. I don't care what you have to say about it. So, she wasn't just allowed to run. The plan in these kind of scenarios is that, oh yeah, we're gonna let her run, and then we'll argue back and forth, and then you can keep running your thing, keep sending us money, and we'll keep letting you buy drugs. No, there is a larger plan at play, as I said. They wanted her to run so that they could legitimize her politically. So they had to get Maduro to think that she's going to be a non-issue, right? Everything's going to be normal. So they're not going to be pushing her internationally until they're ready to make a move on this. When did that occur? Well, just a couple weeks ago, there was some voting on the Nobel Peace Prize. Interesting timing with the president getting a peace deal with Israel and Palestine. That same week, Maria Machado was given the Nobel Peace Prize, meaning that knowing what was happening with the president and with his daughter over in Israel, with what everyone was heralding to be a monumentous event, they knew that she was going to be given the Nobel Peace Prize, and it was coordinated with the people internal at the Trump organization because they then could congratulate her on her Nobel Peace Prize, thus legitimizing her not only as a leader, but as somebody with a higher moral character and the high ground in what was about to come. That's in the last couple of weeks. Everyone's focusing on, well, look at the Middle East. Well, look over here. Is Trump bombing drug boats again? What is he doing with that? Meanwhile, the Nobel Peace Prize has just given the ordination crown of she who is better than thou to the person who is the heir apparent to Venezuela, which the Trump administration has given their ominous dominance because they just did something monumentous and yet still had the humility to provide her the kudos, kid, you did it, even though technically she hasn't done anything yet. Now, how does she align with them? Well, if you look at her as a leader, she is strong. She kind of comes off as a little bit of a Bill Maher classical liberal. She is pro-abortion, pro-gay marriage, but in those two things, similar to with industry, she thinks that all of that should be the government being removed. So if we were to look at that, the U.S. side, you would have a lot of people on the left or the right that if we go back to the 90s, or you go all the way back to literally the early 1900s when a marriage certificate wasn't even required, she thinks these issues should not be covered by the government, and that's governmental overreach. We here tend to agree with that side of things, at least for my own personal opinion. We have a diversity of opinion here. Just, I'm the one who's talking right now. Yep. Anyway, she is wealthy. Their family has been wealthy, as we said. She considers herself a feminist, but not a feminist in the way that Europe would consider it. She considers herself more of the classical kind of feminist, of a strong woman, feminine qualities that matter, and women should be given the equal rights as males in terms of society, i.e. voting, the ability to live, pursue happiness, ownership of property, etc. So it looks like she might be the ordained leader. We have seen something, as we were talking about with Iraq. Let's go a little further back, and most of even the boomers won't remember this as well. Iran and the Shah of Iran and the replacement of how that went down. It's very interesting. Not mirrored situation. It's a callback. It's a little bit of a callback. In this scenario, we don't have conflicting ideologies on the religious side, though. We have a primarily Christian group of people within leadership in the United States in terms of their stated religion and beliefs that also are in alignment with those who are coming in. A Christian group of people who are in kind of a classic Democrat 90s kind of political makeup. It's very much Trump before he ended up joining the Republican Party and before he pretty much exited and started the MAGA Party, right? So there is a little bit of a confusion, it seems, on the personality or the type of person that Trump is around women and other powerful women. And while I know that there is a lot of information that you could probably say one way or the other about his history as a billionaire and a person, a man about town and associated with a variety of people, one of the things that I've noticed, if we actually do bear down on who is making the decisions, his daughter is the one that he sent to make entrusted one of the most important moments of his entire life. As a father, to give that to your daughter, that's a lot of trust. It's a lot of trust. And then he also has an enormous group of extremely credentialed and well-spoken press secretary of national intelligence with Tulsi Gabbard. I'm trying to think. There was like several that we were bringing up here. I got to find them. Sorry, we'll bring that back up. But he does have a history of putting in people, Secretary of Education, even the person who's running his everyday PR, Margot. She's another person who is a female, professional, feminine, but extremely intelligent and does her job better than I think anyone I've ever seen. Shout out, go Horned Frogs. Now, how does he work with foreign powerful women? Well, if we look at Italy, he's doing very well. If we look at countries, I think this is the more important part because some people may say, "Oh, he doesn't like women." Look at Frau Merkel. Look at the Spanish leader, and I'm like, I think he's made a pretty good amount of decisions with primarily women and men on both sides of his decision-making paradigm, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and say, I don't think that's as much of an issue as it is, how are you going to deal with him? And if we look at Javier Milei, down in Argentina, or if we look at El Salvador, these are two people that are both libertarians, but they're also extremely focused on righting the ship of justice and their justice bureau, their justice arm for the government. I don't know if you guys saw the leader of Venezuela when he had the election brought in the entire police force with everybody at the table who was the new elected officials from that election. He said, all of us, including me, are getting investigated. Because none of us should have a fear of investigation, because if we truly are here to serve and not serve ourselves, we'll remain at this table at the end of this term or whenever they were going to do it. But it was a show to the people, not necessarily them. Obviously, in that scenario, especially if you're a student of history, communist societies typically use communist socialists, but you have KGB, right? Or you have the SS, or you have the Politburo, or you have the party group that's coming in, and specifically with the party's intentions in mind, they go after the party's enemies that are internal. It's a very, very evil way of doing things. Did I mention socialism sucks and is evil? Still think that. Now, also, I don't think that people that think socialism is good are evil. I want to make that distinction because I have a lot of friends who have a very high opinion of socialism. It's stupid and they're wrong, but I love them very much and I do have a high opinion of them. All right, regardless of that. Anyway, in these scenarios in Latin America and South America, Trump seems to be doing very well. He's a very high poll numbers as a leader and he's not even their president. So it seems he's actually building a coalition in South America that are supporting him. Brazil's going to have some issues moving forward. I'm just going to say that, but I'm going to leave that carrot out there for us to come back to later, not today. The Panama issue, too, if you guys remember, he was discussing maybe just taking back over Panama. A lot of people have an issue with that, saying, well, this is the land of the Panamese, the Pan Americans. It's like, listen, I am a person who has come to this country through migration. We weren't given asylum, even though we were seeking it, from a genocide. Over 99% of my family was killed. I understand needing to leave your hometown and being forced out. My family was there for back to Noah. So it's pretty long history. So when people say we've been here forever, I'm like, well, how long you been here? Because for us, it's since history was recorded. That's kind of the standard. So when people are like, well, we've been here for 400 years, I'm like, come on. It's like 3 weeks in history, man. So for these countries and these people who are there, they're saying, well, these are the Pan Americans, these are the Brazilians, these are the Venezuelans. I'm like, well, listen, I don't know who's going to claim who has the right to rule, right? It's kind of like, it seems like Trump goes with the golden rule, you know, right? He who has the gold makes the rules. You've seen that from Aladdin, right? History is written by the victor, and that's a very sad thing, but it's a very true thing. In terms of Panama, or the people that are currently inside of Panama's government there 300 to 400 years ago. Were they there 600 years ago? Were the people who were there 600 years ago the originals, or were they there after they killed the people that were there before them? When the Spanish arrived on the shores of Puerto Rico, were those Puerto Ricans that they slaughtered? Or were they Spanish and then the Americans came and then now the Spanish call themselves the original Puerto Ricans? Were the people that were there from Puerto Rico the original people? Now, we're going to go down a very quick and very short rabbit hole because I want you guys to understand this. I come from a place that is in what is called the Caucasus Mountains and the Middle East. All right. Armenia used to be attached to Arabia, obviously Turkey, and then it goes all the way down to the Mediterranean. It's the middle of the Middle East. It's right next to Iran, Iraq, Syria. Those are our neighbors. And then to the north and to the east is Azerbaijan, Georgia, Russia. So it's kind of in that central, literally the Middle East. So I look at everyone over here as like a new, oh yeah, what's your history? Because I like to learn. And it turns out The populations in the natives of America have turned over a great deal of times. I was very surprised to find out, okay, there was an entire population underneath all of Amazon. That used to be a massive population, maybe double, triple the size of Egypt, ancient Egypt. And they had roads, and everything was covered over in mud and water during this thing that they're starting to call the Great Deluge. And the historians are coming up with this, we do think there's something to this flood theory that everyone's talking about. And, coming from the land of Noah, we're like, yeah, yeah, you're figuring it out. Same thing with Guatemala, Costa Rica, all the way down in South America, and then all the way up here in North America, where we have a snake mound in Ohio. That's like the oldest thing in the United States. And they don't tell you about it in the history books. Why? Because that stuff and those people aren't supposed to exist. It's this group of Native Americans or this group of First Peoples. And then if you go into their history and their religion, are they the first people? Well, no. No, they're not. They're not. Turns out they have a religious background of going after these giants with red hair and blue eyes, and they were like 9 feet tall. And they killed all of them.
And most people, they get devoured by these evil giants. And the evil giants that you are dealing with are actually like living beings.
That is Native American history. I didn't know until last year. Color me surprised. However, when we're discussing who has a right to own Panama, see, we're bringing it all full circle. Is there anybody left who's actually from there? No. In fact, apparently, according to this brand new thing about this great deluge, it seems like everybody who lives down there is dead. Something called the flood wiped them all out. Weird. If only there was a book that had a history about all that stuff. Oh, there is. Well, look at that. So I guess when we're thinking about where to move or who to put our trust in or who actually owns something, maybe we should stop putting our faith in our tribes. Maybe we should stop putting our faith in this man or that man or this woman or that person. Maybe socialism and capitalism and all these other things are not necessarily what we should be focusing on now that we're coming into the Christmas season. Maybe, just maybe, it's already been written for us. Just got to open your ears, man. Listen to what the Lord is saying to you. It's a crazy time. We're going to get serious. We can zoom in? No, I don't like that. Zoom out. It's getting real, I think a lot of people are noticing, and I've seen this on Sean Ryan. I've seen this on people like Tucker Carlson. I've seen this on, Patrick Bet-David and his growth through his coming back to Christianity or his identity. It seems like a lot of people are going in a drastic manner to Christ or to the opposite. So I want to encourage you all to put your trust in the Lord this weekend as things start to get weird, as the Caribbean goes from, a place where you're taking your winter vacation this year after Christmas and between the new school year starting, and now it's turning into, I don't know. But in all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. So start the day off with that. That's why we want to start bringing that to our news. While we will try to kick everyone else's ass and bringing you what's going on, at the same time, we would like to encourage you and give you something that you can hold on to that's not fear or a product. We don't have any ads to run, so that's part of that. But as we celebrated a birthday with a friend of mine yesterday, it was calling to mind as I was walking away and getting different texts or different things about this news story that, it is a moment to celebrate when we remember our birth and what it means to come into this world and what it means to leave. The birth of somebody is something that we take at a very high level of importance, especially when we recognize who it is that's putting that person there and who that person is representing, which we believe at Avides Daily is the creator. And that's why we are named after the good news. This is a news station that means to bring you the daily news, but also to bring you the Avides, the real news. Christ is risen. Christ is Lord. And that's pretty much all you need to worry about. It's good enough for a lot of people throughout a lot of genocide. So, that's kind of where I start the day at. What's going to happen? Doesn't matter. Christ is Lord, and he's risen. Yeah, everything can feel pretty heavy. We might start bombing Venezuela. However, oil prices might go down. Panama Canal might become a thing. If you thought floating the Brazos is fun, try getting like a 15-person tube and going through the lock. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. But legitimately, that may be something that happens. If you're wondering why, and you're wondering why we're building up allegiances or alliances down in the South America region, it's because you haven't looked at the pipeline of Europe. We've quietly lost all of Africa as a continent. We had a high amount of control over it in the early 2000s. George Bush was actually, believe it or not, George W. Bush was one of the most popular people in Africa because of the amount of work they did fighting the AIDS crisis. However, the bureaucracy and the corruption that's occurred in many places went unchecked over the last 4 years by a group of people who were in the White House. I don't think they necessarily did anything other than just destroy the world and just allow chaos to reign. Absolute nightmare the last 4 years. But we're done with that now. And now we're watching people of action take action. Is it the action we want? I think we can all say confidently that there are many things that this administration are doing that were not part of what people voted for. So recognize that. However, pause for effect. This is it. There's nothing you're going to do about it right now. And in all likelihood, this is probably the best place for you. If you think it's going to get easier, it's probably not. Russia has done a lot to screw with Europe, and not many of you know this. Other than all of the oil and gas and minerals that we lost in Africa, we also now are getting most of our batteries and our precious metals from slave mines. There are more people in human slavery in Africa, in the Congo, today than ever existed in the history of man. I want you to think about that. The 1900s were the bloodiest and the most death-filled 100 years that have ever been recorded. And we kicked off the 2000s, the technology age, the dot-com boom, by enslaving the continent of Africa and covering it up and abandoning them and allowing the Chinese and Russian to move in and just build systems of slavery. Several different places have junta-led coalitions that are overthrowing their governments, and I'll be honest with you, that's not necessarily a good look, especially when a majority of the northern part of Africa has remnants of the Moors and other different Arab, or we're just going to call it what it is, Islamist groups in Algeria, Libya, Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia? Yeah, Tunisia probably still. That they don't care. Kenya, Nigeria, Sudan. Are you watching what's happening there? It's genocide. You're really focused over on a small part of the Gaza Strip with two people that you have absolutely no relation to, and yet a lot of people like to say the cradle of civilization is Africa, and you seem to not even be worried about that because. Have you ever been to Africa? Do you know anyone who grew up there? You probably do. Have you asked them about it? Then why are you so worried about who's, bringing you a bagel or who's cooking you shish kebab? Okay? Let's focus on a few things this weekend as we move into, my favorite season, the season of our Lord's birth celebration. And If you try to bring up something, you're not we're solstice. What? Yeah, okay. Trust me when I say you do not actually know the history of where this comes from. And you also don't even know that the 12 days of Christmas are the time between the Western and Eastern churches when they celebrate Christmas. If you didn't know that, that's like first grade stuff. So you know what? This is a little conceited. I'll recognize it. I'll cut it back. Appreciate it. Well, yep. Still no updates. So it appears we were the first. I would say within the next 4 days. My guess, I want to do like a Trump thing, but like I'm not going to steal his moment if he's going to come out there. So with Africa quietly being surrendered to the Soviets and the People's Republic of China, what's going on in South America? Well, we kind of need to establish ourselves. Geographically, it's important to take over and monitor and utilize resources and have allies. If they take over our thoroughways and they start building the Silk Road down there in South America like they did in Africa, America is, it's over. I know you don't understand quite yet, but in terms of the resource capabilities, and then what really matters is the shipping lanes and managing and monitoring the ability to transport the commodities to everybody who needs them. If we control the only place that you can go from the East Coast to the West Coast of America, which is the biggest consumer, then you take back a certain level of permanent control. Make sense? Now, one of the things that you should know more about is how do we do that? Well, you probably hear about like the Caribbean, Panama Canal, but there is a military structure that exists within the entire United States military that cordons up the whole world into commands. So you've probably seen stuff on movies about like, oh, this general and that general and Patton and stuff like that. But we still function globally in the Department of Defense with commands for parts of the globe. So with Europe, it is Eurocom. We have Northcom, North America. We have CENTCOM, and we have SOUTHCOM. So SOUTHCOM is the ones who would be technically running this. However, it's a little bit interesting. Typically, these posts are like a post anywhere else in the military. A couple of years, you go through your tenure, or you take your big spot as a flag officer, meaning in this scenario, a flag officer usually means from colonel up to a 4-star general, with 5-star just being something that happens during specifically global war times or special designation. So right now we have Admiral Alvin Hosley, who is the commander of SOUTHCOM. We also have Lieutenant General Pettis. Is that how you say it? Let me see. I'm just going to double check this. He's pretty cool. So they divide them up into different groups of people. And by that, I mean, you'll have somebody from the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and then usually one from an intelligence branch or one from the amphibious, the Marine Corps branch. So we have the Admiral Halsey, Alvin type. He's going to be retiring at the end of this year, according to Secretary of War, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. So he's the naval part of this. And then you have Lieutenant General Pettis, who is the Air Force side of this. And typically you'll see in these commands people who bring together something that are a cohesive team, right? Like they'll bring their special skills. So if the admiral knows about big fleets and carrier groups, then the Air Force guy will likely be somebody who knows about like space or flying stuff. So as we see with Lieutenant General Pettis, he is a former A-10 Warthog pilot and a F-15 pilot. So he knows about planes. And if you're a veteran, you know that the A-10 is like our favorite plane as the ground forces. You also have Stephanie. She's interesting. She's former Navy. If I was to guess, and I'm not going to go dig too deep into this because she's a civilian type now. She probably was intel because she's also former ambassador to Peru, which is interesting. So she knows South America, and she likely knows several different languages other than English. And being the only lady on there who's not in uniform, she probably handles herself pretty well. Meaning that appointment as, again, by the way, woman of color and woman who's taking a very important intelligence position and ambassadorship in South America, appointed by Trump. You don't want to see who Obama and Biden appointed. Trust me, you really don't. A lot of white males. You're not going to believe it, but that's because you haven't been watching it or paying attention. Finally, for the Marines, Semper Fi, we have Sergeant Major Rodriguez, who is a artillery Marine and very well decorated. He looks like he's been on several different tours, and he knows what he's doing with long range and artillery weapons and shells and this kind of environment. Interesting. We haven't had a major naval amphibious invasion like this in quite a while. I would assume, and we're just going to give you an understanding from a, we'll call it veteran layman's perspective. What's occurring right now is we likely have several different groups of people unofficially inside of the country who have either infiltrated their military or gone into a resistance force and have started building up places where they will be infiltrating. They're gathering intel from the air, from satellites and everything else, which the hurricane probably helped because they also snuck in two, let's see here, what were they? B-1 Lancer bombers, which is not a B-2 Spirit, but they are long-range bombers that can carry any bomb. Flying those over the land is kind of the same thing as us flying a B-2 over Iran. It's just letting everyone know, yeah, we can, and we're coming. So that's not a good sign for Maduro. If I do not wish to be him, especially in this scenario. When we have somebody who knows how to use the military and then sends it after somebody, run. You're not going to get anywhere, but run. Don't stop. Don't look back. I said the coastline is 1,700 miles long. And this is an important thing I want you guys to listen to. Their military has, we said, maybe 70,000 people. One of the things people just assume is militaries have weapons. They assume they have fuel. They assume they have food. They don't. Most in this scenario, especially when they're trying to keep their civilian population at bay and they're using drug cartels to do that, when they're bombing the drug cartel ships, they're not bombing cartel ships and it's like, oh, you're killing people and you're not giving them the chance. And like, who are you to be able to bomb somebody in other waters? It's like they're cutting off a supply chain of money. They're cutting off supply chain of intelligence and anything else that could be brought in or out by the people who are the most capable on the sea of doing that. That's the first part. After that, they move in and they take care of the slow-moving or the more official vessels. Venezuela has 10, I think. Yeah, it's like 10 or 11 total Navy ships, I think. That's what I saw when we pulled it up. But they literally have two submarines that are like, how would I explain this? Okay, you know how like a Corvette from the early 2000s is technically a sports car, but if you set it next to a Ferrari or Lamborghini from the early 2000s, they're two different completely class of things. This German-made diesel-electric submarine that they have two of doesn't fire surface to air missiles that can carry anything that's really going to do any damage. And we probably have more than two submarines already just doing circles around them right now. We have underwater drones. We have all of these different groups of people who've been making autonomous infiltration vehicles. This is probably going to be one of the, you know what? I'm not going to say. I'm not going to bet on this. I don't want anyone from Kelsey trying to throw odds on how close I was. Not that I matter that much, but I'm just saying I don't want them to start doing this on me and then I'm like off by 500 points and then I have to hear it from other people who bet all the time. It's like, dude, I thought you knew what you were talking about. It's like, no, man, I didn't put odds on anything. I'm just throwing out numbers on that stuff. But their navies, I mean, honestly, if I were them, change the paint tonight, right now. Sail away. Throw on the Enya song and sail away, sail away, sail away. Like, you don't want to be there with, listen, I know you may have watched some movies. You don't know what's coming. run. If you're on land, if you're in the ocean, sail away. Go sell that boat. Move to Greece, Go move into Mykonos or like somewhere, the Amalfi Coast, sell it, or turn it into a fishing boat. Just change your life. If you're already good on the sea, take that over to Puerto Rico, go be like a day snorkel trip person. You got a really big boat. Doesn't need to get blown up. You don't need to die. Get up out of there. I'll tell you what, if you start seeing pamphlets fall from the sky that are written in really bad Spanish and they show, people saying, hey, we're going to bomb this place, believe them. It seems to be something we do, is just trash talk before we get there. And that's not like talking trash as in, overconfidently and cockily telling them stuff that, is over the top. We're literally going to dump trash on you, and that trash is going to say what we're about to do after we dump that trash. So, we're masters at it. Anyway, 6 a.m. And wouldn't you know that? Not a single thing out there right now. Well, we hope you enjoyed this. Update, look for Maria Machado to probably be your next leader of the new American state of Venezuela, or the new Republic of... If we're invading, it's going to be run by somebody. The steel she's going to get her factories running back up, that's probably going to be coming from West Virginia and Pennsylvania. The oil that we're going to be pulling out of there is probably going to be coming right into the port of Houston. And actually, Puerto Rico, if you guys want something kind of cool, you could also become a refiner of things that come from South America and become a mass producer of, say, I don't know, silicone. A lot of people don't know. Oil is the most well-used resource in the world, the most complete. And pretty much everything, plastic and polyester, silicone, and everything that happens from it comes from oil, byproduct. Puerto Rico, become that waypoint between South and North America. And you know what? Use that money, okay? Build your education system off of that refinery infrastructure, start producing electronics. Why Taiwan when Puerto Rico is right here and also the midway point between this side of the world's Africa, i.e. an entire continent full of mineral, I can't say this, mineral rich societies that are all becoming our newest and best friend. Now, one quick follow-up that you should know. Russia and China have been moving people into Venezuela, and this isn't like it's propaganda, get people thinking that we're a threat. I'm not over here saying Russia's going to invade Venezuela. Have been sending people in plain clothes to help Venezuela ward off this attack. If they can, that's their goal, because Russia and China don't benefit from us ending up running and working with a very wealthy Venezuela. They either keep that sector of the world poor and keep getting cheap resources out of them, or America wins. It's a global population game. A lot of people are worried about the global, digital currency and the digital ID. It's like, you do understand that is coming from somewhere. It's not just collectively this group of big, bad, evil people is all of a sudden getting... It's like, no. That's a plan, and there are heads of that plan, people who run that side of things. So when we're going in somewhere, Russia and China send people in to try to help them fight us. When Russia and China are going in somewhere, we probably send people in. Maybe. Not saying we do. Not saying we don't. But we probably send people in to just make it really, really frustrating for them. I don't know if you know this. Ukraine... I understand you really want to believe with all those flags and all the money you sent over there, and that we've let disappear through Ukraine, and then all of a sudden ends up... Bernie, what are you doing with all that Ukrainian money? Anyway, Ukraine's not winning that war without a whole lot of illegal stuff that may or may not have been going on over the last 4 years or back in the 2010s. But you don't need to know about that. Just keep sending your tax dollars. Anyway, it's kind of the same game. Okay, listen, we're not the only ones that play it. All the governments play it, and that's what it is. So you don't like it, run for office, and maybe go back to Proverbs. You know what I'm saying? As we were saying, place your confidence in the Lord, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding, whether it be your job, your home, your relationship, or anything else. It should start with God. So that's the news. Thanks for coming. And I hope you're not too hungover from last night, guys. Lots of vitamin C, and if there's something you need to get checked, the clinic is open in 2 hours. It's the Bet David show.
I don't want to be shipping off $40 billion to Argentina. I totally agree with you. I don't. Why are we bailing?
They're not wrong. The Civilian Space Agency. Why would we be sending off billions of dollars to Argentina? What does Argentina have for us? INVAP, FEMA, but spelled FIMA. If you want to go check them out. Comisión Nacionales de Actividad Especiales. The boys from Buenos Aires. If we were to give them a nickname, I don't know, probably like Nick Fuentes' uncles. Yeah, if we were to kind of give them a group of people that may really hate one group of people, and yet for some reason keep flying to Huntsville, Alabama. Probably a coincidence.